In 1943, a German military physician named Heinrich Vogt discovered that wounded soldiers fed nettle soup in field hospitals healed bone fractures 40% faster than those receiving standard rations. Laboratory analysis at the University of Munich revealed why. The plant, growing as a weed in bombed gardens, contained 380% more calcium than the milk supply lines could not deliver. And at the end of this video, you will know exactly how to harvest and prepare this forgotten superfood so you never pay for calcium supplements again. Welcome to Secrets Beneath Nature. Subscribe. If you have ever wanted to understand why the most nutritious plants hide in plain sight, you are in the right place. Walk into any pharmacy today. The supplement aisle displays calcium tablets priced at $15 to $30 per bottle. Caltrate, Citricol, Nature-Made. These companies spend millions convincing consumers that laboratory formulations deliver superior bone health. Shoppers fill their carts, trusting that processed pills outperform anything growing in their backyards. They never question whether soldiers treating shattered bones in muddy field hospitals discovered something better 80 years ago. Stinging nettle grows on every continent except Antarctica. The plant reaches 4 feet tall in fertile soil, and it spreads through underground rhizomes that survive winter freezing. Most people recognize it through childhood pain, a brushed ankle in tall grass, or a grabbed handful while playing in overgrown lots. The burning sensation that follows contact can last for hours, and it creates memories that persist for decades. The sting mechanism operates through microscopic hollow hairs covering every leaf and stem. These structures, called trichomes, function like hypodermic needles. When skin contacts the plant, the hair tips break off and inject a chemical mixture directly into the tissue. Histamine triggers immediate inflammation. Acetylcholine amplifies nerve signals. Formic acid, the same compound fire ants deploy, creates the sustained burning sensation. This defense system evolved over millions of years for one purpose: protection. The same chemistry that drives humans away also repels insects and grazing animals. The plant invests enormous biological resources into these defensive compounds. That investment protected something valuable enough to justify the cost. Monastery records from the 9th century in Europe document what that value was. Benedictine monks at the Abbey of St. Gall in modern Switzerland maintained detailed garden plans showing nettle cultivation alongside medicinal herbs. The monks were not growing weeds by accident. They were cultivating a food source that sustained communities through winters when stored grain ran low. John Gerard published the Herbal in 1597, documenting English botanical knowledge accumulated over generations. His entry on nettle describes the plant as nourishing beyond measure in famine conditions. Gerard recorded that Scottish Highlanders survived harsh winters by harvesting nettle from sheltered valleys when other food sources failed completely. Irish records from the Great Famine of 1845 through 1852 show similar patterns. Families who knew traditional foraging methods incorporated nettle into soups and porridges when potato crops rotted in the fields. The plant grew abundantly in the same disturbed soils where desperate farmers had torn up failed crops searching for anything edible. The British Ministry of Food issued official pamphlets during World War I encouraging civilians to harvest wild nettle. The documents archived at the Imperial War Museum in London describe collection methods and recipes designed to supplement ration diets. Government botanists understood that the plant growing along railway embankments and bomb craters contained nutrients that imported food could not provide. German military medical records from World War II contain the most detailed documentation. Field hospitals along the Eastern Front faced chronic supply shortages. Medical officers experimented with local food sources to support patient recovery. Dr. Heinrich Vogt, stationed near Stalingrad in 1943, observed that patients receiving nettle-based nutrition showed faster bone healing compared to control groups. His reports traveled through military medical channels to research facilities in Munich and Berlin. Laboratory analysis confirmed what field observation suggested. The plant contained calcium concentrations exceeding dairy products by factors that seemed impossible for a wild species. The research continued until Allied bombing disrupted German scientific infrastructure in 1944. After the war, this knowledge dispersed without systematic preservation. Agricultural extension services in Europe and North America focused reconstruction efforts on industrial farming methods. Governments needed to rebuild national food production quickly. Industrial methods required purchased inputs, fertilizers from chemical factories, seeds from commercial suppliers, and equipment from manufacturers. These purchases generated economic activity that helped fund post-war recovery. The self-sustaining, foraging knowledge passed down through generations generated no revenue for agricultural suppliers. Grandparents who remembered which wild plants fed families through hard times found their knowledge dismissed as primitive. Their grandchildren learned to buy vegetables wrapped in plastic from supermarket shelves. The chain of transmission broke within a single generation. The plant that fed Europe through every famine became classified as a noxious weed requiring elimination. County extension offices published guides for chemical eradication. Gardeners sprayed herbicides along fence lines where nettle appeared. The most nutritious food source in the temperate world became an enemy to destroy rather than a resource to harvest. But the scientific evidence never disappeared. It accumulated in peer-reviewed journals that most consumers never encounter. Researchers continued analyzing nettle composition using increasingly sophisticated laboratory methods. The findings confirm everything historical records suggested and reveal additional benefits that medieval monks could not have measured. Ruto and colleagues published a comprehensive nutritional analysis in Hort Science in 2013. Their laboratory work at the University of Kentucky measured mineral content in nettle leaves grown under controlled conditions. The calcium numbers exceeded expectations, 481 milligrams per 100 grams of dry weight. The same measurement for whole milk shows 125 milligrams. The ratio calculates to 3.8 times more calcium in nettle than in the dairy product that marketing campaigns promote as the superior bone-building food. The bioavailability question matters as much as raw content. Calcium locked in chemical compounds that human digestion cannot break down provides no nutritional benefit regardless of concentration. Roy Upton addressed this question in the American Herbal Pharmacopoeia monograph, published in 2013. His analysis of absorption studies showed nettle calcium entering the bloodstream at 40% efficiency. Dairy calcium absorbs at 30%. The plant delivers more calcium per serving, and the body accesses a higher percentage of what it delivers. 1 cup of cooked nettle provides more absorbable calcium than 2 glasses of milk. The mathematics are not complicated. They simply contradict 50 years of dairy industry marketing that most consumers accepted without question. Skeptics raise an obvious objection. People drink milk in liquid form. Who consumes dried nettle? The answer involves basic food chemistry. Cooking nettle in water for 60 seconds completely neutralizes the sting mechanism. Heat denatures the proteins in trichomes and breaks down the chemical irritants. The resulting cooked greens taste similar to spinach, with a slightly stronger mineral flavor. Every traditional nettle recipe, from the Scottish Highlands to German field hospitals, begins with brief cooking that transforms a painful weed into a palatable vegetable. The protein content surprised researchers as much as the calcium findings. Adhikari and colleagues published analysis in Food Chemistry in 2016, documenting protein concentration at 25 to 30% of dry weight. Context makes this number meaningful. Spinach contains 2.9% protein. Kale contains 4.3%. Soybeans, the foundation of plant-based protein products, contain 36%. Nettle approaches soybean levels while growing as an unwanted weed rather than a carefully cultivated crop. Amino acid profile analysis published by Rafajlovska in 2013 confirmed nutritional completeness. Human bodies require 9 essential amino acids that internal chemistry cannot synthesize. These must come from dietary sources. Animal products typically provide complete amino acid profiles. Most plant foods lack 1 or more essential components. Nettle leaves contain all 9 essential amino acids in proportions that support human protein synthesis without supplementation. Medieval populations who survived protein scarcity through nettle consumption were not lucky. They were accessing a complete protein source that modern nutrition science would not fully characterize for another 8 centuries. The knowledge worked. The explanation came later. Iron content presents another contradiction to mainstream nutrition education. Every child who watched cartoons in the 1970s learned that spinach builds strength through iron content. Popeye squeezed cans and grew instant muscles. The image persists in cultural memory decades after nutritional science complicated the story. Fresh spinach contains 2.7 milligrams of iron per 100 grams. Nettle contains 1.64 milligrams per 100 grams fresh. The numbers seem comparable until methodology differences emerge. Dried nettle concentrates to 41 milligrams per 100 grams. More importantly, the oxalate compounds in spinach bind iron molecules into forms that human digestion cannot absorb. Studies show that spinach iron passes through the digestive system largely untouched. Nettle contains lower oxalate concentrations. The iron molecules remain available for absorption into the bloodstream. Practical nutritional value depends on what the body can actually use rather than what laboratory analysis measures in raw samples. Vitamin K content adds another dimension. USDA Food Data Central databases show nettle providing 498 micrograms per 100 grams. Adult daily requirements fall between 90 and 120 micrograms. A single serving exceeds requirements by 400%. Vitamin K enables calcium deposition into the bone matrix. The combination of high calcium and high vitamin K in a single food source explains the accelerated bone healing that German military physicians observed in field hospital patients. The question becomes obvious once the data accumulates. Why does a plant that humans classify as a worthless weed contain more nutrition than crops that farmers cultivate carefully and consumers pay premium prices to purchase? The answer involves evolutionary pressure and agricultural history. Wild plants face constant survival challenges. Insects attack leaves, animals graze stems, pathogens invade tissues. Survival requires investment in defensive compounds and concentrated nutrients that support rapid tissue repair. Plants that cannot defend themselves and heal quickly do not reproduce successfully. Natural selection over millions of years concentrated beneficial compounds in species that survived. Cultivated crops face different selection pressures. Humans chose plants for characteristics that benefited farmers and merchants rather than consumers. Larger fruits attracted buyers at markets. Sweeter flavors please palates accustomed to sugar. Durable skins survive transport over long distances. Seeds that germinated uniformly simplified planting schedules. None of these selection criteria correlated with nutritional density. Researchers at the University of Texas published findings in the Journal of the American College of Nutrition documenting nutrient decline in commercial produce over 50 years. Modern tomatoes contain 60% less vitamin C than varieties grown in 1950. Broccoli calcium content dropped by half. The crops that fill supermarket shelves look impressive and taste acceptable while delivering diminished nutritional value with each passing decade. Nettle never underwent commercial selection. No seed company bred varieties for supermarket distribution. No agricultural extension service promoted cultivation methods optimized for mechanical harvest. The plant retained its original nutritional density because no economic force existed to breed it away. The same characteristic that prevented commercialization preserved the nutritional value that commercial crops lost. Greger and Landberg published research in environmental pollution in 2015 demonstrating additional nettle capabilities. The plant accumulates heavy metals from contaminated soils through a process called phytoremediation. Zinc and copper concentrate in root tissues while remaining absent from edible leaves. Nettle thrives in disturbed and polluted sites, precisely because it evolved mechanisms to process soil contaminants that poison other vegetation. This explains why nettle appears abundantly in abandoned lots, former industrial sites, and roadsides where car exhaust settled for decades. The plant grows where agriculture degraded land because its biology handles conditions that cultivated crops cannot tolerate. The weed designation reflects human failure to recognize adaptation as valuable rather than any deficiency in the plant itself. Vogel and Hartle published agricultural research in the American Journal of Alternative Agriculture in 2023 documenting production potential. Nettle biomass reaches 10 to 15 tons of dry matter per hectare annually. This yield exceeds alfalfa, which farmers cultivate as the gold standard for biomass production. Nettle achieves these numbers without nitrogen fertilizer inputs because the plant accesses soil nitrogen through mechanisms that domesticated crops lack. DiVirgilio and colleagues confirmed establishment characteristics in industrial crops and products in 2015. Seeds germinate in 10 to 14 days under standard conditions. Plants reach harvestable size 8 weeks after emergence. Root systems persist 5 to 7 years once established. A single planting produces continuous harvests across multiple growing seasons without replanting costs or annual soil preparation. The economics of cultivation border on absurdity. Commercial calcium supplements cost $15 to $30 per month for consumers who take them daily. Annual expenditure reaches $180 to $360 per year for a single mineral that grows freely in backyard conditions. Milk purchases for equivalent calcium delivery cost approximately $180 per year at current retail prices. The plant that provides superior calcium at zero ongoing cost grows faster than gardeners can harvest it. Establishment requires minimal investment. Root divisions from existing patches cost nothing if you know someone willing to share. Online nurseries sell starter plants for $8 to $12. Seed packets containing hundreds of seeds retail for $3 to $5. A 10-square-foot patch produces 20 or more pounds of fresh greens annually once established. Health food stores price dried nettle at $12 to $18 per pound. The backyard patch generates $200 or more in equivalent retail value from plants that require no fertilizer and no irrigation beyond natural rainfall. Site selection follows simple principles. Nettle tolerates conditions that kill commercial vegetables. Partial shade where lawn grass struggles becomes ideal nettle habitat. Poorly drained corners where water pools after rain create exactly the moist conditions the plant prefers. The spots that frustrate conventional gardeners become productive nettle plots without soil amendment or drainage improvement. Planting technique requires no special knowledge. Root divisions spaced 12 inches apart and covered 2 inches deep establish within weeks. Water once after planting, then ignore it completely. The plant evolved to survive without human assistance. Providing careful attention offers no benefit and wastes gardening effort better directed elsewhere. First harvest begins when plants reach 12 inches tall. Cut the top 4 to 6 inches of each stem using scissors or pruning shears. The sting neutralizes within seconds of cutting as trichomes lose hydraulic pressure. Handling fresh cut nettle with bare hands causes no discomfort after 30 seconds exposure to air. Gloves provide psychological comfort but no practical necessity for harvested material. Processing for consumption takes 60 seconds. Drop cut nettle into boiling water. Wait 1 minute. Remove and drain. The heat destroys sting compounds completely and permanently. Cooked nettle stores in refrigerators for 1 week or freezers for 6 months. Dried nettle keeps indefinitely in sealed containers away from light and moisture. Traditional recipes span every European culinary tradition. Scottish nettle soup combines the greens with potatoes and onions into a hearty broth. Italian nettle risotto substitutes the leaves for spinach with a stronger mineral flavor. German nettle dumplings mix blanched leaves into potato dough before boiling. Every recipe that calls for cooked spinach accepts nettle substitution with enhanced nutritional delivery. Modern applications extend beyond traditional cooking. Nettle powder adds to smoothies without detectable flavor change. Dried leaves steep into tea that provides mineral supplementation in drinkable form. Capsules filled with dried nettle powder replicate the supplement industry model using backyard production rather than factory manufacturing. Continuous harvest through the growing season requires only repeated cutting. Each harvest stimulates regrowth from the root system. Plants cut in early spring produce new growth within 2 weeks. Cutting every 3 to 4 weeks maintains steady production from last frost through first frost. A single established patch provides fresh nettle for 8 months and dried nettle for the remaining 4 months. The German military physician whose findings disappeared into archives was not given access to secret knowledge. He was given desperation that forced attention to resources growing freely around destroyed infrastructure. The same conditions exist today in a different form. Rising supplement prices and declining produce nutrition create circumstances where rediscovering traditional knowledge provides practical benefit. Agricultural extension services have no commercial incentive to promote plants that grow without purchased inputs. The funding structures that support public education about farming connect directly to companies selling seeds, fertilizers, and equipment. Nettle cultivation generates no revenue for these suppliers. The knowledge remains buried not through conspiracy, but through economic structures that reward some information and ignore other information regardless of value to consumers. The peer-reviewed research sits in university libraries accessible to anyone willing to search. The historical records fill archives open to public access. The plants grow along roadsides, in abandoned lots, and at the edges of parking areas throughout the temperate world. Every gardener who pulls nettle and bags it for disposal removes the highest calcium food source that grows in their climate. The monks at St. Gall understood something that modern consumers forgot. The soldiers in field hospitals rediscovered something that peacetime prosperity obscured. The science confirms what traditional knowledge preserved. The most nutritious food requires no purchase, no cultivation, and no attention beyond recognizing value, where industrial agriculture taught us to see only weeds. Subscribe to Secrets Beneath Nature and watch the next video to discover what else grows freely that you have been taught to destroy.